They told me there would be a general amnesty. There was not. They told me my service to the old government would not matter. It did. They told me my translation work for foreign forces was forgotten. It was not. They told me I could stay quiet, keep my head down, be discreet. So I tried. Then they came to my house at night. I ran. I crossed into Pakistan. They were not safe there either. Now I am in the UK, the US or Canada. Can I get asylum for this? We base these videos on the analysis of real cases of people facing persecution in their home countries. We are country expert witnesses from London, focusing on human rights violations. We receive cases from major law firms who represent asylum seekers in the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, and the European Union. Our goal is to prepare evidence-based assessments and expert witness reports for asylum tribunals. Today, it is a story about people targeted by the Taliban in Afghanistan and Pakistan. People flee Taliban persecution from Afghanistan and Pakistan. If this is your case and you need a country expert report for your asylum claim, the link is in the description. Let me give you the numbers, because this is not just one story. Today, more than 6 million Afghans live as refugees outside their country. That is one of the largest refugee populations in the world. Around 3.8 million are in Iran. More than 1.4 million registered Afghan refugees are in Pakistan, plus another 1.5 million who are undocumented. In 2025 alone, more than 2 million Afghans were forcibly returned home from neighboring countries. The United Nations says most were sent back against their will.
Mr. Vice President, Your Excellencies, the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan is compounded by the forced return of over 2 million Afghans from neighboring countries this year alone, particularly from Iran and Pakistan.
In the United Kingdom, Afghans are consistently in the top 3 asylum-seeking nationalities. The first instance grant rate is among the highest in the entire UK system, usually around 90%. In the United States, through the Special Immigrant Visa Program alone, more than 70,000 Afghan allies have been resettled. Asylum grant rates for Afghans in immigration courts are typically between 70 and 85%. In Canada, Afghan asylum grant rates are above 80% at the Immigration and Refugee Board. In the European Union, Afghans are the largest single nationality of asylum seekers. Eurostat data shows EU average grant rates between 60 and 70%. So when you ask, am I alone in this? You are not. Tens of thousands of people are asking the same question. Now let me look at the two countries, Afghanistan first. From Afghanistan, Afghans file tens of thousands of asylum claims every year across the UK, the US, Canada, and the EU combined. The first instance grant rate in the UK is around 90%. In the EU, it averages 60 to 70%. In the US, typically 70 to 85%. In Canada, above 80%. Here is something most people do not understand about Afghanistan today. The Taliban does not have a normal codified penal code, like other countries do. They apply their own interpretation of Sharia law, case by case, through their own courts. But they have started to write down their rules in formal laws. The most important one is the law on the propagation of virtue and the prevention of vice, adopted in August 2024. This law is enforced by more than 3,300 male morality inspectors across the country. They control how women dress. They control how women travel, only with a male relative. They even allow the concealment of women's voices in public.
It restricts women's mobility without a male guardian, controls their dress, and even authorizes the concealment of their voices. The law is enforced by some 3,300 male inspectors across the country, including through arrests and even physical violence.
And in early 2026, the Taliban leader signed a new decree. It extends the number of offenses that carry the death penalty. It legalizes corporal punishment in the home. It criminalizes any criticism, of the Taliban leadership.
A new decree signed by the Taliban leader last month defines several crimes and punishments that contravene Afghanistan's international legal obligations. The decree, which is expected to come into effect soon, extends the number of offenses that carry the death penalty. It provides for the use of corporal punishment for numerous offenses, including in the home.
The result is that almost any conduct can be punished. Women have been banned from secondary education since 2021, banned from universities since December 2022, banned from medical training since December 2024. Public floggings happen regularly, sometimes 14 people in 48 hours in public. The death penalty is being applied openly.
128 people, including 101 males and 27 females, have been subjected to corporal punishment, the majority for crimes such as adultery and sodomy, as well as for theft and murder. In the past 48 hours, 14 people, 12 males and 2 females, have been flogged in public.
And here is the critical fact. The Taliban specifically targets former government employees, former soldiers and police, interpreters who worked with foreign forces, judges, prosecutors, women's rights defenders, and ethnic minorities like the Hazaras.
Former civil servants, such as prosecutors and security force officials, continue to be targeted with reprisals.
On the 15th of August 2025, the Taliban supreme leader announced by a single oral order that the 4-year period of interim rule was over. The Taliban now declares itself a permanent theocratic government. The 2021 promise of an inclusive government, of a general amnesty, of moderation, all of that is gone.
So without any due process, without any concern for legitimacy or a public support process, the Taliban have established a full-fledged theocratic totalitarian regime.
Now From Pakistan, around 3,000 asylum claims are filed every year across the UK, US, Canada, and the EU combined. The grant rate is around 30 to 40% on average, but it is much higher when the case involves direct Taliban persecution. Pakistan also hosts more than 1.4 million registered Afghan refugees, and many more who are undocumented. Since November 2023, Pakistan has been deporting them at scale. Pakistan is not a signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention. There is no national asylum law. Refugees in Pakistan have no automatic legal status. The main legal tool used by the state is the Anti-Terrorism Act of 1997. It is used to prosecute the Pakistani Taliban, known as Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, or TTP, but it is also used selectively against political opponents and former Afghan officials who fled to Pakistan. The second key piece is the Illegal Foreigners Repatriation Plan, adopted in October 2023. The second phase started in April 2025. The third phase started in August 2025. The result, millions of Afghans deported back to the Taliban.
My office urges all countries to end the forced return of Afghan refugees and to protect those at risk against refoulement.
And then there is the cross-border problem. The Pakistani Taliban operates with relative impunity in the former tribal areas, the FATA and the KPK province, along the Afghan border. They cross the border to attack and kidnap. People who fled the Afghan Taliban are not safe from the Pakistani Taliban. In late 2025 and early 2026, cross-border clashes between Afghan Taliban forces and Pakistani military have killed hundreds of civilians on both sides.
Distinguished delegates, I'm very concerned by a sharp increase in civilian casualties in cross-border clashes with Pakistani military forces. UNAMA documented 70 civilian deaths and 478 injuries in Afghanistan in the last 3 months of 2025.
This is the heart of the video. The expert assessment. Asylum is granted first of all when the state cannot or will not protect the victim. So let me explain what state failure to protect looks like for Taliban persecution. In Afghanistan, there is no state to appeal to. The Taliban is the state. They are the persecutor and the de facto authority at the same time. There are no functioning courts that protect human rights. There is no functioning police that protects victims. There is no parliament, no constitution that applies in practice. The persecutor and the protector are the same entity.
The Taliban's transformation of the justice system weaponizes the legal, judicial, and social order to oppress women and girls, their allies, and LGBT persons. And is designed to enforce, entrench, and sustain the group's repressive and misogynistic ideology. This system of gender persecution amounts to crimes against humanity and is well characterized as gender apartheid.
In Pakistan, the state is unable or unwilling to protect Afghan refugees. Instead, Pakistan is actively deporting Afghans back to the Taliban. The state is part of the problem, not the solution. Now, the grant rates by destination country. Because the courts have already accepted, in case after case, that the risk is real. In the United Kingdom, first instance Afghan grant rate is around 90%. In the United States, between 70 and 85%. In Canada, above 80%. In the European Union, average between 60 and 70%. Now the second part of the test, risk on return and internal relocation. Courts sometimes ask, can you just move to another part of your country? This is called internal relocation. We explain why that does not work for Taliban-related cases. Reason number one, since the 15th of August 2021, the Taliban controls 100% of Afghan territory. Every province, every city, every village. There is no internal safe zone. Reason number two, the Taliban took control of biometric databases that the previous government and foreign forces left behind. Fingerprints, iris scans, photographs of former soldiers and officials and interpreters. They use this data to identify targets at checkpoints across the country. Reason number three, if they cannot find you, they target your family. Wives, children, parents are detained, beaten or killed as proxies until you surrender. Reason number four, Pakistan does not provide a safe alternative. Refugees in Pakistan are being deported back to the Taliban. The Pakistani Taliban operates across the border. There is no neighboring country safe for an Afghan with a Taliban target on their back. And on the question of risk on return, the United Nations is unambiguous.
Our joint report with the UN mission in Afghanistan, UNAMA, released in July last year, highlighted that former government officials and members of the security forces who returned to Afghanistan from Pakistan and Iran were subjected to killings, arbitrary arrests and detentions, torture and ill treatment. I urge countries to refrain from returning refugees and migrants to Afghanistan without an individualized assessment of their circumstances to ensure this does not violate their human rights, particularly the principle of non-refoulement.
Now the expert conclusion. This is the standard expert position. The expert witness cannot accept or reject the applicant's testimony. That is the court's role. The expert assesses the applicant's account against the country situation and provides a detailed conclusion on the risk of return to the country and the risk of internal relocation. In most cases, if the claimed information is accepted, internal relocation and return to the country are unsafe for this type of persecution. And if the court accepts the applicant's evidence, asylum can be granted in most cases. This is why a personal assessment of each individual case is critically important. What can happen to a person if they are sent back to Afghanistan? First, imprisonment, detention without due process, often in former government prisons, now run by the Taliban. Second, torture. The UN mission in Afghanistan has documented this systematically. Beatings, electric shocks, sleep deprivation, sexual violence. Third, public flogging or execution. The 2026 decree extends the death penalty to many new offenses. Public floggings happen weekly. Fourth, enforced disappearance. People are taken at night and never seen again. Fifth, reprisal killing, especially for former government officials, soldiers, judges, prosecutors, and interpreters. Sixth, for women specifically, almost total erasure from public life, forced marriage, denial of healthcare, and violence at home that is now legalized. Why does internal relocation not work? The persecutor has nationwide reach. The Taliban governs every province in Afghanistan. There is no safe corner of the country. Biometric tracking, fingerprint and iris databases captured in the previous era are now used at every checkpoint. Family targeting. If you hide, they go after your family. The pressure does not stop until you return or surrender. And the morality enforcement system reaches every household. More than 3,300 male morality inspectors operate across the country, supported by family members, religious leaders, and neighbors, who are required to report violations.
Enforcement has expanded to family members, religious leaders, and neighbors, deepening discrimination throughout society.
And one more thing, the methods used by the Taliban breach the most fundamental rules of international law. They breach the 1951 Refugee Convention, particularly the principle of non-refoulement, which prohibits sending a person back to a place where they face persecution. They breach the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the right to life, the prohibition of torture, the right to a fair trial, the right to freedom of movement, the right to education and work. And in cases that come before UK or European courts, they breach Article 3 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which prohibits torture and inhuman or degrading treatment. The International Criminal Court has now issued arrest warrants against the Taliban supreme leader and the Chief Justice for crimes against humanity. That is the level we are at.
Accountability is essential, and there has been some progress with the issuance of, in July 25, of arrest warrants by the International Criminal Court. I fully support efforts to codify gender apartheid, among other crimes, in the proposed treaty for the prevention and punishment of crimes against humanity.
This is the legal frame in which your case is assessed. The country conditions are documented at the highest level of the international system. Full expert reports on Afghanistan and Pakistan, covering Taliban persecution, women, former officials, and refugees, are available on our website. Link in the description. You can use those reports in your asylum claim. Let me summarize. If you are from Afghanistan and you fled because the Taliban targets you as a former official, a soldier, a police officer, a judge, a prosecutor, an interpreter, a journalist, a human rights defender, a member of the Hazara community, a woman, or a member of the LGBT community, your fear of persecution is well-founded under the 1951 Refugee Convention. If you are from Pakistan and you face persecution by the Pakistani Taliban, or you are an Afghan who fled to Pakistan and are now at risk of deportation back to the Afghan Taliban, your case is documented at the highest international level. In every major destination country, the UK, the US, Canada, and across the EU, courts have repeatedly accepted Taliban-related cases. Grant rates for Afghans are among the highest in the world. What you need is an individual case assessment, supported by an expert country report, to demonstrate to your asylum decision maker that the country situation in your specific facts places you at risk. If you have been refused, appeal. The country conditions have only worsened since 2021. The UN now describes Afghanistan as, quote, a graveyard for human rights.
Afghanistan is a graveyard for human rights.
If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the Human Rights channel. Leave a comment below. Share this with anyone who needs to understand what people targeted by the Taliban actually face. And if you need a country expert report, the link is in the description. I will see you in the next episode.